Welcome to another edition of Strange New Pod. I'm your Fleet Admiral and host, Julian Brown, alongside the best bridge crew this side of a wild game of Tango. It was the craziest game of Tango you've ever seen. That song by the people that's names I forget, but Crazy Game of Poker. OAR. It's an OAR song. I sang for you. Don't forget it. Yes, a wild game of Tango. Commander Hawk is here tonight with me, and the jury's still out on if you like jump sticks or not. Yes, no, maybe so. You're from Canada. They're supposed to be mapley.
Right. I don't know. I'm not quite sure I know what a jump stick is.
It's like the big giant triangular looking things they get on the promenade on the stick.
That thing that okay, I remember those.
Yeah.
I probably pass.
Passing on the jump sticks. And then we are reestablishing comms tonight, and also joining us in ops is Strange New Pod's own personal Nagus and Ferengi expert. Collective member Jessko is back. Welcome.
Hello.
How have you been?
Been good. Been accumulating profit.
Very good. That's the most important thing. I believe that your outfit tonight is actually made up of latinum.
Oh, absolutely. Only the finest.
The finest. Did Garrick help tailor that?
Perhaps.
Gotta
keep a secret.
Gotta keep Garrick's secrets. Oh, so good. And people are already commenting, Jessko, about your Geordie bear in the background, and They're loving it. Yes.
My little buddy.
Hey, buddy. This week, guys, cue the DS9 music. Dun, 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 dun. That's right. Part 2 of our Best of the Ferengi series as we head to Quarks on the promenade. As we know, Deep Space Nine, truly the heart, the soul, where all the good Ferengi episodes are. They shine there once again. Jessko, could not have done this without you. You made quite the list. And once again, we had some people question, like, why isn't this there? Why isn't that there? How hard was it for you to make this one?
You can ask Julian when he asked me to do this. The list for Next Gen sent it in like a half hour. The list for Deep Space Nine, I had to let marinate, had to make some very painful cuts, but I knew we'd be able to sneak all of them into the discussion somehow. But ultimately, I wanted to talk tonight about just the growth of the Ferengi and how they've kind of transformed from Next Generation to Deep Space Nine. So that was the inspiration behind the list. I hope you guys liked it. I enjoyed watching them all again and brushing up on the lobe knowledge.
I thought you were about to say brushing up on the latinum. That would have been good, but the lobes work as well. I like it. It's a good list, and it was really fun watching these episodes again. I had a ton of fun. We are going to get into it, but before we do, we're going to thank our patron collective members at the Ready Room level and above. Since it's just been me and Hawk these past 2 times, I'm up this week. It's me. So I'm going to say thank you to Jeff Reeve, Mariah Gossett, Tallulah, Jen Stein, Tina Alexander, Joe Saporito, Noe Santos, Kang Hui, Takako Nagumo, Kara Kennedy, Mark, Fernanda Nogales, SMK, Laura Linderman, Colin Davidson, Alan Davis, Shatterhand 2049, Jessko, there she is, MC Frodis, Michael Graham, Emily and Travis, Gildara, Cassie, the Canadian is French, Maggie Light, Picard, Wayne Ritz, Skonavark, Sean, Jay Howard, Mehalani Uchiyama, Matt Harker, Joshua Lewis, Cassie McIntosh, David Willett, Tara Pollen, Slope 74, and Rude Parakeet. Wow, that list. I still get shocked by how big it is. You guys all freaking rock. Indeed. We have some news. I'm going to try and get through this a lot because we don't do many of these often, but this is a 6-pager, and there's a lot to get to tonight. So I'm going to try and blow right through this. Next Thursday is opening night of Picard Week. Unfortunately, we are bringing the deep dives. They're going back into cold storage as Picard's about to come back. But our second annual podcast festival is coming back. It begins at 3 p.m. Eastern time next week, kicking off with Where's Bev? That's going to be awesome. Later that night, kicking off right before us is Earth Station Trek at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll be on at our usual time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, maybe a touch later, depending how long it takes, Earth Station Trek with MC And then Rihanna from the Duras sisters and I wrote MC twice because that's how much we love her.
Yes.
For our TNG Kelvin pitch, which is going to be pure chaos and madness. I'm not apologizing. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be fun, but it's going to be madness. So stay tuned for Picard Week. We cannot wait to bring it to you. Happy hour. We have our second happy hour in a week in a row because one, making up to you guys. Two, it's going to be impossible to try and get one off during Picard Week. So we're doing it tonight, right after the pod. Stick around for that. And then this is a really special announcement. As you guys know, Eric has been gone. He's at Starfleet Academy. Not literally, but kind of literally. He's taking some classes that happen to be on Thursday nights. He is gone for the next month and a half. So 1.5 months longer that he'll be in San Francisco, actually Canada. So starting with the Picard premiere, our friend and collective member, actually really starting next week, MC Frodis will be guest hosting on the pod while Eric finishes up his classes. So she'll be with us from the 16th of February to about the 9th or the 16th of March. So really excited to have MC join the bridge crew for a month. It's going to be great. Really excited to have her on and have her takes and more conspiracy theories from Chris. So it's going to get good. And then finally, this kind of came about really quickly, but in New York City on Monday, February 13th, they are doing a Picard premiere screening with a Q&A with Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Michael Dorn, and Gates McFadden. After a bunch of us have gotten tickets, and we are doing an impromptu get-together. You can check out all the details for that, including a link on how to get tickets if you're close to the area or in the area. We're all going to be getting dinner beforehand and then hitting that. So it's going to be a great time. It's going to be great to get some meet some collective members that we've never met before. So good times. I think I got through that pretty quickly. We're only not even 12 minutes in because I hit record early. We're getting this going. Did I put any more news in this thing? I didn't. That's good. Here we go. Moving right along. Strange New Loop time. I think this might be a hard one. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. If given the chance to become Grand Nagus of the Ferengi Alliance, would you take the scepter? Jess, you're our guest. You get to go first. What do you think? Chat, let us know too.
Yes.
Yes, I like it. An immediate yes.
Only if it comes with a free audience with Ishka.
Wow, just going for it, huh?
I mean, I'll need the financial brains of the operation, but I can be the face.
Who is going to be your financial brain?
Oh, absolutely, Ishka. She is the most profitable of the Ferengi.
As Ram said many times, has the lobes for profit. Indeed. I like it. Hawk, would you take the role of Grand Nagus?
Oh, absolutely. Noticing like in that, just the first introductory episode in that, like Quark temporarily took over in that, like the opportunity for profit is immense. Like, half of new profit coming in just to you, for doing nothing. Obviously, there's some dangers involved in that. It's a bit like taking over the role of, the head of any sort of like a crime family in that. But
I like the way that you did the crime family. You do this on the day of my daughter's wedding.
For the wedding, yeah.
Oh man!
You do not treat me as a friend.
Before I go, we got some good answers. We got an answer from Haven in the YouTube chat. Stranger Loop, I would not take the scepter, but I feel like I would destroy the alliance far too quickly. I mean, I'm scared of the scepter. I wouldn't take it. I just for like the Death Star, have some good Romulan ale cocktail specials. I'll leave it at that. No scepter for me, please.
It's interesting. You thought of Sopranos. I was thinking of The Wire. There was this line that, about how prisons and graveyards are full of boys who wore the crown. But the point is they wore it.
I've never watched The Wire.
I'm getting Eric. Eric's on season 3 now. Season 3 is the finest season.
Nice.
Although like pretty much every season was great. But yeah, if you got the time, I know there's so much on your plate. If you got the time, you really owe it to yourself to watch it.
Well, I will say, and this will make some people in the chat happy, and it'll make the creator, or not the creator, the showrunner of Picard season 3, Terry Matalas, happy. I have just binged the first 10 episodes of 12 Monkeys, and it is amazing. It is really good. I used to get hardcore anxiety from the movie. So I was like, I don't know if I could watch the show, but the show is a completely different animal. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah.
So highly recommend. 12 Monkeys.
I remember the movie from years ago. I actually got to see it in the theater. Yeah.
I think I saw it in theater too with my dad, and I was no. Jessica, you ever seen 12 Monkeys?
I haven't seen any of these shows.
Nice. Ken goes, I'd only be Nagus if I could skip the Hooperian. I'm gonna butcher this, Jessica. What's it? The Hooperian beetle?
Hooperian beetle stuff.
Hooperian beetle stuff. I like it. Nice. Oh, Last of Us added a tribute to Annie Wershing at the start of episode 3. Oh, my heart. Wiener, I want the scepter. It reminds me of the one in Time's Arrow. Maybe it works the same. I like it. I'm going to kind of speed through. If you have more answers, let us know on YouTube. I'll read them as we go, but we have a lot to get through. So I'm going to hand the reins to Jessko as we talk about the Ferengi on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Jessko, you have some history.
Absolutely. So when the show Deep Space Nine was being created, it was thought to be more of a companion to The Next Generation rather than a sequel, to really try and push the limits on what a Star Trek show could be. So, we've got it taking place on a space station instead of a ship. And they made the decision very early on that some of the main cast members were going to be aliens that weren't necessarily from ally species. So the most visible of these were the Ferengi. And the idea to include the Ferengi specifically came from the show's co-creator, Michael Piller, who thought that they would serve to be an interesting foil to the Federation. And also in this show that's going to be a little more darker tone, give us some levity and some funny moments, which as we go through the episodes, we'll see they really fine-tuned that element of them to a sharp point. And that is one of my favorite aspects. And where the Next Generation really developed the species, Deep Space Nine, I think, perfected it, and even down to the makeup. And I find it funny going back and watching some of the early episodes of Deep Space Nine, because Quark's makeup has a little bit of a transformation throughout, because in those early episodes, his face looks a little bit different. And that's because he has Rom's nose, because his was still being sculpted.
But I think that his face also, besides Rom's nose, which is like the famous one and the most noticeable, right? Like, I feel like Quark over the first few seasons, definitely like the makeup gets better and it gets more refined, right?
Exactly. I think the most noticeable change in that is they start to kind of refine his eye makeup down. And I think you guys will like this little fact, is that his makeup artist, Karen Westerfield, also worked on the Batman movies. And for Batman, in that mask, she put purple around the eyes to bring out the eyes and kind of blend the mask in. And she did the exact same technique on Quark, so that his eyes really popped from under that thick brow.
Oh, she worked on the Keaton Batman?
I'm not sure which.
Which go ahead, Hawk.
I was going to say the first thing I thought of when you mentioned that was Batman Returns, and the way the penguin's eyes are,
that makes sense.
Yeah. Darkened around there so that the actual, iris and pupil pop.
Came out around the time of season 1, maybe 5 years before, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, that is right around that time. Nice. Cool. Any other history?
And just, going off from the makeup, the actors were then able, now that they knew how the Ferengi looked and they had these more tight scripts where they weren't necessarily having to fight Captain Picard, they could kind of do their own thing. So the actors, Armin, Max, Aaron, all the fantastic actors who were the Ferengi were really able to get into the role and develop the species into something with more facets than just profit, and it actually being a little bit progressive now, and I would argue lovable.
Definitely lovable.
The species we know today. So let's hop into these episodes and get rolling.
Yeah, I like it. Speaking of episodes, we're gonna just get right into it with just. Oh man, the Nagus, which is just like what, episode 3 or 5 of
4? I think it was.
It's one of those 3, 4, or 5. Super early in DS9's run, we get to just immediately meet Grand Nagus Zek, played by the incomparable, amazing, legendary, inconceivable. I do not think you think what you think that means. Wallace Shawn, of course, just a legend. I want to get your guys' first reactions when you first met Zek for the first time, and the way that Wallace Shawn portrayed him. Jessko.
I thought he was hysterical. I didn't take him seriously at first, but that's par for the course for the Ferengi. And I just love that they went right in and established here's how their government works, here's their leader, and here's why they're all a little crazy, because this is the guy at the helm.
Yeah, absolutely. Hawk?
Yeah, he was the perfect guy to play Zek. I mean, obviously Princess Bride, most famous role, but I think this one kind of tends to trump that as far as history goes. He's
if
I
you're
remember,
a Trekkie, I would say
I don't
maybe
know
not,
if you're
no?
a Trekkie too. I don't know. Because actually maybe you're right in that, because I was thinking about when Schaus and we were talking about the Grand Nagus with him, and that I don't think he even knew who Wallace Shawn was.
Oh,
I mentioned Wallace Shawn to him on the Princess Bride, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know him," and that, and I was like, "Oh, he was the guy who played Quark's boss," and he's like, "He was the Grand Nagus."
Yeah. Oh,
he's like, "I could quote the rules of acquisition all day long."
I don't know whether I saw the Princess Bride or DS9 first as a kid. I'm not even going to try and figure it out because I wouldn't be able to know, but I know that I immediately recognize the voice.
Yeah.
And I mean, no one else has Wallace Shawn's voice. And I don't care if he was cheesy at the beginning. Like, Zek is such a legendary role, and he's just so good. The makeup is so awful in the best kind of way, right? Like the hairy ears, the wrinkles, just everything. It's just like the minute you see him, you're never ever gonna forget about him, and that's what makes a great, especially for a guest spot. So he just worked perfectly.
Oh, and especially like his first, his first interactions on the station, and that is like, he went for 5 erotic holodeck programs, and they came out like
the 90s. Oh man. Just real quick in the chat, welcome. They said, hey Strange Pod, Zeagle Card Breaks, welcome to you. And then welcome Random Red Shirt Podcast, who's going to be part of Captain Picard Week, is in the chat as well, saying love the Ferengi. Nice. Welcome.
Hello.
Any other thoughts on Wallace Shawn as next? We're going to talk more about him, obviously. And it doesn't waste any time either. That's why I love this episode. I mean, it does, because it wastes a few minutes in the holodecks with probably a lot of umox for Zek. But they don't waste any time with a death fake out episode. First season, death fake out. Let's do it. Zek fakes his own death to see if his son, who, as Jess reminds us, we never see ever again on Deep Space Nine, to see if he's ready to take over. Before Zek fakes his death, he names Quark, of all people, Quark, the proprietor and owner of just this little lowly bar on Deep Space Nine, and he names Quark Nagus. Hijinks ensue, and then the episode ends. There's obviously a lot more, but the most important part is Rom, of course, isn't happy. Neither is Zek's son, and they attempt to murder Quark by pulling a Laura Roslin and airlocking him, only to be saved by Zek. How was this for everyone? Because I love it.
Oh, I think it was fantastic. And I think the smartest thing at this episode is they used the death fake out to somehow build the culture more. Because when Zek comes back, he tells his son, you shouldn't have tried to get rid of the Nagus. You should have used him as a puppet and stuck here on the bar by the wormhole. It just shows how sneaky they're trying to be now, and actually, thinking plans through. And unfortunately, his son didn't get the memo.
No, not at all.
No. For me, it kind of illustrates one of the finer points of Ferengi culture, is that there really is no unity in that, and they will literally crawl on top of each other in that, yes, to reach the top of the mountain, yes, and that,
Yep.
Setting up Quark, like as the Grand Nagus, and that he was so happy, and that only to realize that it was really just to draw out Frack and see what kind of lobes he had, and that basically painting a target on Quark's back.
What I love the most about this is how exasperated Zek gets at the end of this, right? He's just like so disappointed, and his son's like, he's trying so hard to be like, I am ready, and Zek's like, no, you're wrong about this and you're wrong about that, and then I don't know whether it was a flub and they used it because it worked so perfectly well, but he goes, it's like, and he takes a breath, it's like talking to a Klingon. And I'm pretty sure it was like he forgot his line for a second, but it works so well because he's exasperated. Oh,
Yeah.
I've always felt that was intentional.
Oh,
just
okay.
To show how he's just like so frazzled because he's mad he doesn't get to retire.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, and listen, while Sean's such a good actor, I mean, he probably fooled me, so I like it. Ben says, way too long since I saw Princess Bride. Same. I don't know the last time I saw Princess Bride. It has been a long time. There's always rumors that they're going to try and reboot it, to which I say, I will find you and I will kill you. Don't do it. Don't do it. So Jesse, you were talking about it at Hawk. You were talking about it a little bit this episode. A few subtle homages to The Godfather. Even some of Quark's the hand gestures he made. Hawk, you couldn't help yourself.
I just know.
Were inspired by watching the film. I guess they were watching it while shooting, which is cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, the director does in fact have a special version of the tape where they used music from the movie to the score. Jess, tell us about that because it's amazing.
Yep. So as I was doing some research for this episode, I found out that while they were filming this, they played The Godfather in like the lunchroom, and Armin went back and kind of during that scene where he's behind the desk, he started doing it, but he did it with his lobe. Made it a little Ferengish.
Oh man. Oh.
And then I believe it was Rick Berman kind of pranked the director of the episode by sending him a tape that was all Godfather music, and the director was like, "Oh, this is perfect. I can't wait to see it air." And Rick was like, "No, that's just for you. It's copyright."
Yeah, you cannot use that. Hawk, you
But
laugh.
it exists. It does exist.
We got to blackmail Berman to put that out into the world, like as a special feature on a Blu-ray or something. When they finally restore Deep Space Nine,
high definition.
For have the technology.
Hawk, you scoffed at me saying subtle.
Yes, subtle. No, there was nothing subtle about it in that. It was literally the first scene of The Godfather, and that amazing over-the-shoulder shot, this time Quark in the place of The Godfather being the Grand Nagus. And you can see it's just, the same kind of position, the finger pointing. But then again, it takes on so many more levels with the Ferengi doing it because he's just stroking his own lobes and that. And even the dialogue. Room, man. And even the dialogue was meant to match it in that. You didn't come to me as a friend before I was the Nagus and that, it's like, I'll give you 50% of the profit. And then he just like, I can't remember
that
the line.
Scene where they're doing that is absolutely, I love that. And it's like, I like the lighting too. It's very dark.
Yeah, it's exactly just like The Godfather.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's so good. Any other thoughts on the Nagus before we move on?
I love basically how the relationship between him and Quark starts at that moment, and that because he does recognize something in Quark.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. He's like, you came out here to this station and that at the edge of a wormhole and that shows lobes.
That's a good ball of Sean.
Thank you.
Nice. Yeah. No, it does. It is the beginning of their very long and God, I don't want to say prosperous, but long.
It's definitely a tempestuous relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're done with the Nagus, let's move on to one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine ever, and that is the House of Quark. Yes. Business is down. People are leaving early. Quark is a little depressed. Morn even leaves because he's getting some. Morn's getting some. Good for Morn. All that's left in the bar one night is a lone drunken Klingon, very drunk Klingon. I guess he asked for some credit, and Quark was like, we don't do credit. You got to get out of here. Of course, he goes all Klingon and like, are you insulting my honor? And Quark's like, a line of credit's fine, but they start fighting. Klingon falls on his own knife because that's what bloodblind will do to you. What was your first thought when you guys saw this episode for the first time? What did you think that it meant for Quark? Because like, probably not good to have a dead Klingon in your bar. Jess.
I was expecting a trial episode I thought, oh, they're gonna try Quark for murder. Rom's gonna frame him.
That would line
try
up.
and get the bar.
Yep.
Me?
Yeah. Hit
Okay. First up, seeing him like, over the image of the dead Klingon, and that you kind of knew one, like one thing for sure was going to happen. He was going to answer for this, and there was going to be a confrontation with a bunch of other Klingons and that. And that was so exciting, and that, to kind of see like, what Ferengis and would do when paired up with other Klingon characters and that, and how that would work itself out, because they could not be more of a polar opposite as far as
no, not at all. Yeah, total. I don't know. I love this episode because I feel like from the minute it goes to credits, I'm like, there's going to be Klingons, and he's going to have to answer. But so maybe I didn't see it going the way it did, but I thought that there was going to be like a chase, right? Like Quark was going to have to go into hiding because like Klingons were coming after him, because Klingons would do that. They need to get their, they need to get blood for blood. Not the way it went. Instead, enter Grilka, one of my favorite Star Trek characters ever. I love her. Asks Quark what really happened, because Quark is, of course, being Quark, and he's like, it was self-defense, and I killed the Klingon. Of course, Odo's like, huh. But they go with the story. Grilka's like, that's not what happened. Threatens him with a blade. She's not impressed. So she makes Quark return to Kronos with her, makes her marry him, makes him marry her so she can maintain control over her house. Grilka, thoughts? I love her.
Grilka is fantastic. I feel we don't often get to see just the quieter side of Klingons, the petty squabbles, the how do we solve this problem. And I just love how she goes, she takes what she wants. She's going to fix this problem herself. And I can tell she's been the backbone of this house for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think that he was running her husband was running that house to begin with.
Definitely makes me sad that she has to do that. I feel like we're back on Ferenginar, where she needs a man in order to do anything.
Yeah, which is weird, right? Because Worf says in I ended up watching, as I always do, more episodes after the ones that we did watch alongs for, and it's the one where the Jem'Hadar join forces with the Defiant to go hunt rogue Jem'Hadar, and they're talking about like honor and Klingons and Klingon women, and he's like, no, like he's talking to Dax about it, like Klingon women. No, he's talking to Jem'Hadar about it. Klingon women are equals, like they share in our battles and love. So yeah, this episode didn't quite reflect that.
Yeah, Worf didn't mention property.
No, he did not mention property. That's a good point.
So, I'm hoping Grilka, after getting some business acumen rubbed off from Quark, becomes her own little Ishka and, gets her seat on the council and starts changing things.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, Grilka is an amazing character, but then it does illustrate some of the kind of contradictions of Klingon society. We do know like women are equal to men there in that, in pretty much all respects, and that including the warrior ways.
Yep.
But they also have some pretty draconic laws about like, property and the marriage and house status and that. And I believe she married into this house. And then
yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, and then watched it. Oh God, I've forgotten his name. The head of the house.
Dagor's who challenged. Right?
Dagorn is the brother. Yeah, the one who
challenged. I don't unfortunately remember the husband's name, which is
But it was a drunk who made bad investments and that, and basically depleted most of their livelihood. And Grilka, now freed of him, and that is have to contend with like what is left. Kidnapping Quark was a way to temporarily staunch the wound in that, but unknowing to her, and that she actually ends up making the right decision to kidnap him in that, because he actually finds a way out for her.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that absolutely. I love Grilka so much, and I love when Grilka returns later in the season too, because like I don't know. My headcanon, it kind of shows it in the episode that she comes in, that she actually kind of fell for Quark a little bit by the end of this one. If you remember, like when she kisses him during the marriage, she like spits it out, it's like gross. But by the end, even though she grants him the divorce, right, which we'll talk about, she kisses him again and she's like, okay.
My favorite.
Go ahead.
My favorite moment was when he was going over the books with her and that. They were having apparently like a nice little intimate moment in that, and it's like, I guess he took it way, he went way a little too far. It's like, she had that big smile on her face. If you don't remove your hand from my leg, I'm going to break every bone in your body.
And the fact that they just have their keep their smiles, it's just so
Yep,
good.
and he just takes her by the arm and walks her out of the room like, okay, hun.
Yep. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, I Jess kind of already went into my brain and took out what I wanted to say, but I do love that she's just, she is a really strong character, and she just, immediately it's down to business. I'm taking what I want. I'm getting my house back. And of course, unfortunately has to deal with Dagor, who's making a challenge. So that's what kind of gets us into the importance of this episode, right? Because since like TNG and into, the first couple of seasons of DS9, Ferengi have been kind of portrayed like slithery, slimy, always in it for themselves. But it not only shows Quark being brave, but, very honorable too. And not scared to right or wrong, right? I mean, it helps a little bit that he's on Kronos, but the fact that he goes right into the books, like he's doing what any good Ferengi would do, and he's like, oh, profit and, numbers like this, I know this I could help fix. And I really like that this episode showed that side of the Ferengi, because like I said, he not only honors Grilka by sticking up for Dagor, then he drops his blade, right? Like Ferengi's like, cower in fear when they're about to, get into a conflict. He knows that he can't beat Dagor. Like, one shot and he's probably dead. What did we think about this big moment, not only for Quark, but just, I think the Ferengi moving forward in DS9?
So I love this part of the script, and I'm actually going to backtrack a little bit to
Go
how
ahead.
right before this fight, Grilka is like, look, you've looked through the books, you've armed me with knowledge. You can leave.
Yeah.
You can go, I understand you don't want to be killed. Yes, you're going to put me in a bad spot, but I'm not going to be a murderer. Be free.
Yeah.
And Quark at first takes her up on the offer and hustles away. But when he barged back into that room the first time I watched this episode, I was shocked. I'm like, oh, he's not totally terrible. Oh, be still my heart. No.
I wouldn't go that far, right?
No, but he shows up, and like you said, he drops the blade and he says he's figured out now how the Klingons operate. He's like, if you want an honorable death, you're not going to get it here. He denies them their profit.
Yeah.
Because he figures their currency is honor. So he puts his little Ferengi mindset to work on their terms and finds the solution, and it does end up working out for him. So I love this moment. And yeah, that was a brave thing for him to do overall. So I think it definitely establishes that these Ferengi are not from the Last Outpost.
No, these are the polar opposite of Last Outpost. It's literally, it's like the yin and the yang of Ferengi. Yes.
And I think probably that had a lot to do with like Quark. Basically, he fell in love with Grilka.
I think he did.
He really did. Like, there is no other reason he would have stuck his neck out like this, But Jessko is right. He figured out their game, and that not only like going through the books and figuring out that the brother was the one who was the primary creditor to all of the the late brother's debts and that, and devalued their lands, and he'd been doing it for like a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But on top of that, he susses out the game, and that he's like, okay, it's like, if I run away, like I'll never be able to come back to this woman again.
Yeah.
That's it. I go in there, I'm probably gonna die, but it's like, I know there's a way to negotiate out of this.
Yeah.
He took a big risk, because like, if the guy had just gone ahead and killed him, if Gowron had not interfered.
For everything that Gowron is and becomes, and who he's been, Gowron throughout TNG and DS9 has shown a shit ton of smarts, and it's a great moment for Gowron as well, because I think Gowron sees what's happening, right? And he lets it play out. Gowron's a warrior, but he's also very much a politician. So I love this episode, if you can't tell. Hawk, I'm 100% with you. Even though he did ask for a divorce, but I think that's just because he didn't want the hazards that come with being married to a Klingon. But I think he did fall in love with her, and I think the very best part of this episode is when he comes walking in with the Batleth, and he says his name and his father's name, but then he goes, "I'm here to challenge Dagor, son of whatever." And it's the ultimate insult, right? It's just like getting into his head. It's chef's kiss. So good.
Loved it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the last things I'll mention in that is how funny it is. Like, given how complicated it was for Grilka to take back control of her house and the house finances, and that requiring special dispensation from the council, and that the last time I heard the word special dispensation, it's regarding the Catholic Church and divorces. In contrast, though, Klingon divorces are the easiest thing in the world. Backhand, curse, spit, done.
It's the way it should be.
You're divorced.
Love it.
But better than a Mocklin divorce.
Oh, yes. Great Orville reference. Excuse me. Before we move on, I'm going to read a great comment here from Kang. Grilka would have made a better member of the High Council than most of those losers.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh,
100%.
yes.
Anything else on House of Quark before we move on? Good. By the way, Grilka does return later on, as I mentioned before. I forget the name of the episode, but it's wonderful. It's so good.
And we actually do get to see Quark fight in that.
Yeah, that's true. Moving on to family business. Another very important episode for the Ferengi. Because it breaks down the barriers of not only, right, like Ferengi sexism, but the sexism of the 90s, which was apparent in DS9. It's part of the reason, unfortunately, Terry Farrell ends up leaving the show. It's a mess, but the show a lot. You have to, I think, factor into Ira Stephen Bear, working on it. Moogie has secretly been making a fortune back home, and Brunt, FCA, makes Quark go home to make his mother sign a confession. Family business. What's going on here, Jessko?
This is one of my absolute favorite Deep Space Nine episodes. It is sad how it is, but it's our first real. Well, first of all, it's our first visit to Ferengi,
Yes.
which is so much fun. I loved all the little details, and we'll get into that a little bit later, I think. But it's quite the planet. But Ishka, we meet her, we walk in, and the first thing that happens is Brunt shields his eyes. Oh, clothing, ew.
Oh.
As if she's standing there naked. I think it is kind of funny that it's a switcheroo on that one.
Yep. Yeah.
But as much as this episode was about the laughs and the silliness, I love that it shows that Ishka's just sitting there playing on her little iPad, making money.
Oh man, yeah. Hawk.
This episode is so good for a lot of reasons. First up, Brunt's first appearance, obviously played by Jeffrey Combs. FCA, and how nervous everyone gets around him. That it really kind of shows you the control of the FCA, in that people are just terrified when this guy shows up.
Well, yeah, because he's also walking around with two Nausicaans.
Oh, that's later on.
Doesn't he have two Nausicaans in this episode too?
That's Bar Association.
No, he has
them in this episode.
Wait a minute, does he have that?
Yeah.
Does he just keep? I didn't even.
He just
notice.
keeps
He only
bringing
has them when he shows up to the bar in the beginning, and
Yep,
they never
that's right.
come back.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When he's
like,
back on
"This bar is
Ferengi,
closed."
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Ferengi is an absolute shithole. I mean, like we never see it not raining there.
That's because it doesn't stop.
It never stops. Their delicacy is those grub worms and that, which it's like when you want them fresh, you go down to the basement of your house.
It's probably like eating snails, right?
I think.
Right?
Crickets.
But okay, well, snails are finely prepared in that. They're not served dank and musty, just the way you like them.
Yeah, I love this episode. It is really good. It does say a lot. It also has like one of the most revolting scenes in an episode of Star Trek ever when Rom is getting, you know, he's
Special
like
attention.
special attention laying on naked Moogie. It's a moment that
Yeah, they the actress who played Ishka was quite young at the time, and in order to make her skin look older, they dipped Kleenex in latex and just slapped them on her. And she said she's never been in so much pain in a role, and I feel bad watching it because I'm like, oh, they really just because I mean I've worn the prosthetics on my face and it does pull a little bit. But I put them on very carefully. I can only imagine what something being slapped on to be all wrinkly and crinkly would feel like.
that scene was just awful, but I want to move on because the stuff I want to talk about is near the end, talking about like Ferenginar and you know, Ishka's moment. Before we get to that though, when Quark and Rom get home and as we said, find a clothed, thank God, and defiant Ishka, and she thinks, right, that any Ferengi, man or woman, if they have the lobes for profit, should be able to attain it. How refreshing was this, Jessko?
It was a breath of relief because up until that point, we had the episode Rules of Acquisition before this. But other than that, I mean, I love the Ferengi, but this was the episode where I was really like, oh, we're going to get some real progress with this species because I could kind of see they're laying the groundwork for what's to come. And I was very happy to see this happen. I love Ishka. I love her little attitude. I love her, how she takes no crap from nobody, and she will sass Quark back faster than Odo.
It's very true. It's very true. Hawk, how about you?
First up, shout out to Canadian comedic legend Andrea Martin, who only did Ishka for this episode. Yep. And she was replaced by another actress later on. I don't know why, probably scheduling and that. But I love Andrea Martin. I grew up watching SCTV with her and John Candy and Eugene Levy.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. This so much to unpack in that. Yes, she. Like she's one of those women in that, like, this is something that's, women who wanted to lead more fuller lives throughout history and that in our history and that, oftentimes, had to do it under subterfuge and that, I know I've heard like about like what lesbian women back in the olden days and that would dress as men to, ride as cowboys and that and live out their lives like that. Going back even further, Shakespearean plays and that, or before even Shakespeare and that, women weren't allowed to act in that and often would dress the part of a man in that in order to be able to play, to be able to get on the stage and that. This, I think, was kind of a take on that. Ishka, defiant in her own home, even when the FCA was there.
I'm pretty sure that even while the FCA is there and this whole investigation is going on, she's still on her pad acquiring profit.
Oh yeah,
she's there in her own home. She's dressed in that, and Brunt takes offense. And when she tries to speak to him, he's like, "Did she try to speak to me?"
Brunt being so uncomfortable in this episode is such a highlight, and Jeffrey Combs does it so well. He's just like the hand, and he's like, "Is she talking to me?" It's so good.
And we get that layer, like we see how her subterfuge, how far it goes in that, because from what we're led to understand to that point, it had to do with 3 bars of latinum that she made, off of the stipend that Quark sends her back home. And that it's only when Quark actually starts going through her records and that, unknowns to her, that finds that she has been making move after move after move, and we learn so much about the dynamic of the Quarks family. From this episode.
Well, it's, how ass backward Ferenginar is, right? She has so much more than him that if she'd have to give that all back, Quark is literally ruined, right? Because she's richer than him.
Even if I sold everything I had, I could never pay it off.
And it's just such a, real quick in the chat, Haven writes, Ira Stephen Bear said that Andrea Martin had to bow out hours before they were set to start filming Ferengi love songs, and Cecily Adams was their runner-up choice and came at the quickest possible chance. Oh,
God, I love Haven. They're always there with the answer.
Haven? Sorry, go ahead,
I was just gonna say, Cecily, you know, she's from SNL, and I'm pretty sure she got the job because she had a great Andrea impression.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, is that what happened?
Probably.
Wait, but on SNL?
Oh, I don't know the exact details off the top of my head.
Okay.
I just
Well, that is one of the.
But that's how she got the role.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because one of the things you have to do when you're auditioning for SNL is an impersonation. I think you have to do like at least 3 impersonations.
Okay, I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say Haven is like an android with the technology, just like on the dime all the time.
He's our Data.
Yes, he is.
They are Data. Absolutely.
They are.
Sorry. No, it's okay. I love this episode. I love all of these episodes. Jess, we were talking about getting to see Ferengi for the first time, which is really cool. Not just the rain and the architecture and what looked like hobbit holes and them having a duck, but the little details, right? Like they really thought Ferengi out because it rains so much. There's always towels when you walk in to wipe off your head. When you walk into a house, you always put a slip of latinum in the Nagus jar, whatever you want to call it. It's all, go ahead. It's all these little details.
You sign your life away that you won't steal their items.
Yep. It's just so good. What did you think about the way that Ferengi was so well thought out?
I agree with you 100%. They got every little detail. It's like an onion planet, all the layers of all the layers they squeeze in there. My absolute favorite scene is at the end when Quark's like, I'm gonna turn you in because I can't afford this. Quark runs off and he takes the stairs because the elevator costs more than he's worth. He gets to the top and he needs to sit, but it costs 3 slips to sit and he only brought 2. So he has to bribe the clerk to let him sit in the chair. And then when Rom comes up, they got to pay for the second chair.
The constant Ferengi haggling is just so good.
And then when they leave, they have to bribe the clerk again to not tell anyone this happened.
Yep. The layers of bribes in the Ferengi alliance, it's wonderful. Hawk.
Yeah, pretty much everything that we've talked about, and that including like going into the home. What's that? I'm trying to remember the little oath that they make in that going into the home. This home is mine, and that and all its possessions.
This is your home, and all of its contents are yours, I believe is how it goes.
And then as like call and response, as Brunt responds back with.
It's really good. It's really good. Yeah,
I love it. I'm good.
Yeah. Jess, I wanted to give you the opportunity because you. This is really hard leaving this episode out, but it's in our honorable mentions, and we'll talk about it now. Rules of acquisition, because it's not just one female Ferengi who is starting to make a difference. Rules of acquisition also introduces Pell, a wonderful character.
Yes, so Pell, I love her so much. She's the first female Ferengi you meet. I believe that episode is in either early season 2 or late season 1. And she comes dressed as a man. She's been working in the bar for probably a couple weeks, couple months. And she's making moves. She's giving Quark all kinds of suggestions on how to run the bar, making more profit. And when the Nagus rolls by, Quark's like, I pick Pell to be my associate, which of course ticks Rom off, and he dislobes her and reveals her as a woman. And I just love this episode because it shows, female Ferengi, all we've heard about them is that they're subjugated, submissive. Hell no.
Yeah, no.
They're fighting hard. They are, Ishka says, in the house, she's who taught her sons. She was their first teacher. The women, they're hearing all of this, they're seeing all this, and they want to be a part of it. And they have finally established networks to do it, or maybe they've been doing it for a long time under wraps. But the Nagus even becomes aware of it. And I think this lays the groundwork for eventually Zach becoming, a little more progressive. And also Quark accepting. I think he was more accepting of his mother because he knew Pell.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah. It's an awful part of the episode, right? Because it's very like not accepting. But the way Wallace Shawn looks at Pell at the end of this episode and delivers that "you should be ashamed of yourself" is just so good, but also like, fuck you, dude. Like,
yeah,
go to hell. So good. Hawk, what are your thoughts on Pell? Did you get a chance to rewatch?
I
those
didn't
episodes?
actually get a chance to rewatch this one, but I think it kind of ties back into what I was saying before, and that about how it's like the women of Ferengi, if they wanted to get anywhere in that, it was always through subterfuge, and that because as Jessko explained in the last Ferengi episode we did, in that there was a war, the men took away everything from the women in that, and they've been living under these weird draconic awful laws. Remember like that discussion that he had with Moogie, it's like about how she can't earn profit in that. Why not? Because it's the law. Why? Because it's the law, but you can't give a reason for it.
He knows it's wrong. He can't tell her because I think it's wrong. He's realizing that he's met his match. And speaking of their conversations, I love the one Ishka has with Quark at the end where she's like, you are like me and Rom is like your father. And Quark kind of just sits there and it hits him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Good one. Speaking of yet another good one, we actually, I think, did a rewatch and maybe even a Drunk Space 9 back when we were still doing Drunk Space 9 on Bar Association. It's a great episode. There's strikes, there's Rom, there's Brunt. Speaking of Rom, I want to read Kang's comment here real quick, see if you guys agree. I wasn't a fan of how Rom was portrayed in season 1. It took a while for the writers to get his characters right. Agree? Disagree?
Well, Rom was originally Pit Boss, was his character's name. He was not brother of Quark. He was not waiter. He was just, the title on the script was Pit Boss for episode 1. So he wasn't really intended to be anything other than annoying, I think. But then they realized they had struck gold.
Struck platinum.
It struck gold for us Latinum. They should develop this guy a little bit, and we got our lovable Union Man engineer. But yeah, early Rom, kind of garbage.
Yeah, always going after Quark too, which I mean, I guess is still Ferengi, but it was a lot. Yeah, Hawk.
I think that's meant to show more of the natural evolution of like the Ferengi in Deep Space Nine, and that, because they're really an isolated culture in that, and like Deep Space Nine is kind of like the first time like we've seen Ferengi characters who are living and exposed to like a wider culture around them.
Yeah.
So Rom initially in those first seasons and that, he was going to do as Ferengi do, and that, if it was meant, throwing his brother out the airlock. By the way, how awesome was that scene when he had him in the airlock and Rom pushes his nose right against the glass?
Yep.
But I like that the character evolved over the seasons. And I think that was, the point of DS9, and that, exposing the Ferengi to a wider culture means that, at some point they have to also expand.
Yeah. And Bar Association, I feel like it's not quite the full culmination of his evolution, but it's a very big step.
It was definitely the tipping point.
Yeah, it was. And speaking of Bar Association, I'll just read this great quote that Michael Kwan in the chat put up real quick. There's O'Brien. 32 bullets in him? Or was it 34?
Sean O'Brien.
Sean O'Brien, a union man.
Sean O'Brien.
A union man. Yeah, so back to Bar Association. Strikes, Rom, Brunt, FCA. I'm going to say it every time I say his name, and you can't stop me. This is such a great episode of DS9. If you're getting sick of me saying that, I don't care. We've been having this conversation, Hawk, by the way. Is DS9 still my love, or is Voyager slowly pulling me away? It might have tipped back to Deep Space Nine this week.
Yeah.
Once again, more evolution of the Ferengi, especially as we've been saying, Rom. Quark continues to treat his employees like absolute dog shit. Rom, at the advice of Julian, not me, Bashir, starts a union. Not always the best idea to take Julian Bashir's advice, but, here we are. This was also really the beginning of Rom standing up more and more to his brother. Thoughts on the strike and the union, Jessko?
go Rom, go for bar association. I know you're saying, I feel like you guys might be sick of me saying this, but I love how we're saying, instead of, another next gen Ferengi episode, we're like, yes, bring on the Deep Space Nine Ferengi episodes. I wish there were more. I think they are fantastic. And I'm loving the vibe this lovely evening. But this episode, I think it's fantastic. Not only are we getting Ferengi feminists, we're getting Ferengi union with workers' rights, because another tenet of the rules of acquisition is everyone else's ladders on the rung of success, step on them.
Yes, exactly.
And now they're realizing collectively we can actually make things better for everyone, instead of just one person whose name is Quark making out.
Damn right. Speaking of the collective, you can go back and listen to parts 1 and 2 of our Best of the Borg series from TNG and Voyager in our back catalog. That was a nice unintentional segue, Jess. Thank you.
Anytime.
Hawk, thoughts on the strike and Rom and all of the fun stuff in Bar Association?
As I said, this was definitely the beginning of the Rom that we come to know later on in the series and that. But all it took was a massive ear infection that pretty much almost killed him in that, and his brother docking his wages and that for falling down on the job to get him going. This is a great Rom episode in that it kind of really expanded the character in that. We kind of see him like in a servile to Quark. He's always kind of a little dense, he's not always quick on the uptake in that. In the last episode in that we talked about, remember when he almost spilled the beans to Brunt and that about some of the stuff that Quark hadn't put on his his index filings. So he was always that kind of character in that, and this is one where he seems like he's standing up for himself in that, and not just we know he's in love with the double girl. What is her name?
Alita,
and that but she's currently dating Julian and that. But for him to kind of make that transition shows like how the characters, the race has expanded in that by being on DS9. He the word union was a forbidden word to the Ferengi before this.
What I love about that is that it was a forbidden word, but Rom just didn't give a fuck anymore. He was just like, I don't care. I literally, like you said, Hawk, like I almost died. Like I've been being worked to literal almost death. I'm done. Brunt, FCA, can come and threaten us all he wants. We're forming a union. We're getting what we want. End of story. And Quark does end up paying the price. Like his patronage goes down. Worf, Julian, and O'Brien get in a fight about it. It's great.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was trying to think of one thing he said when the FCA was threatening everybody in that, how their bank accounts back on Ferengi were going to be invalidated.
Yeah.
Rom was the first one that said, if your bank accounts on Ferengi were worth a damn, you wouldn't be here working anyways.
Boom. Truth. Speaking of the FCA, Brunt, FCA, does show up with his minions, his Nausicaan minions, to try and derail the strike. But Rom, who, like I said, is not intimidated. He's just done at this point. He stands up to Brunt, even when some of his fellow Ferengi are like, it's not my fault. It was all his idea. Rob's like, yeah, it was my idea. What are you going to do about it? And it's wonderful. But we do know that Rom's weak spot, even though he's tried to kill him a couple times, is Quark. And after almost getting beaten to death by Brunt, FCA's, Nausicaans, Rom does agree to end the strike and the union. But even though the union ends, it's still a step ahead because Quark does agree to Rom's terms in the process. Was this the right move by Rom, Jess, or is it the one small step outlook, like half glass full?
So Rom is a union man, but he's also a family man.
Yes.
And I wouldn't want to see Quark killed over this. I think Rom was hoping it would just all be monetary damage. So when Brunt FCA shows up with the Nausicaans and starts roughing people up, it scares him. And, he's got the thought of O'Brien 32 bullets so fresh in his memory.
Or was it 34?
Yes.
36 even.
Yeah.
But I think that ultimately it was in this very weird specific space situation the right call to be like, okay, we're not going to have people dying over this. We made some progress, and I think Rom's going to rest easy knowing that his brother knows he means business.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Yeah. Hawk, how about you?
It was a great move for him because, as he says at the end of the episode, and he's like, "I find out you better when I'm out from underneath you."
Yep.
Yep. He's, again, it shows that shift in his values and that. And he was always a family man and that, raising a son and that, far away from home. He was a widow. And yeah, you can see it like, in the household with him and Moogie and that, he was the one, he's that linchpin that kept them all together.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's always that one in the family and that. I think I'm that in my family, but
that's a good thing, Hawk. That's a good thing.
I think so. And yeah, him deciding like, I'm out of the business and that, and I'm going into engineering and that junior third grade night shifts.
Yep.
He start at the bottom and that to reinvent himself up.
And we're going to talk about that. I do want to read Michael Kwan's comment here. This is great. Love the scene where the Nausicaans are throwing knives into each other. And Quark goes, "Doesn't that hurt?" And Brent goes, shrugs. Probably. I think he says, I think all games Nausicaans play involve some sort of pain or yeah. Oh, it's so good. Hawk, you did mention one last bit of amazing defiance from Rom and his personal health, mind you, too. He takes the first step into becoming an engineer, the engineer that we love and know, and joins the Bajoran engineering team. How happy are you for Rom in this moment? Because it is a feel-good moment when he walks up to the bar. He's in a uniform. And he's like, "Give me my slug juice. I'm a customer." It's so good. Jess.
Yes, I love that for Rom. And we didn't mention it, but at the beginning of Family Business, Rom and Quark are discussing how Nog wants to join Starfleet. That whole arc happened, Nog's arc, we really haven't talked that much, but Nog and Rom kind of are very much reflections of the same journey. I'm going to try and be a good Ferengi, even though I'm probably not, but that's all I know to, I don't need to be a good Ferengi. I'm going to be a good person and do what makes me feel good and what's going to, be fulfilling for me. And I think Rom's been watching his son, go to academy, start at the bottom, and just sees how happy it makes him and how fulfilled Nog is. And Rom's like, I did my best. I formed a union, which is a big no-no in Ferengi society. So maybe Ferengi society isn't for me.
Yeah. Yep. Great point.
And sure, he's starting as a junior grade engineer, but he's going to be respected as part of the team. And I love that for him. And now he absolutely is a customer. I hope he's being paid well if he's ordering a lot, because, Quark's double charging him.
That's absolutely right.
There's no family discount.
No, there's definitely no family discount.
Family surcharge.
Yes. Yep. Double. Hawk.
I'm just going back to thinking of the Nagus and that, and like how far back this kind of whole thing goes, because how this all could have really not happened for him. And that, remember that point he was actually thinking he was going to pull Nog out of school and that because the Nagus poo-pooed like him. It's like, you let him go to those human classes.
Oh my God, dude! Stop! Goosebumps. Oh my God. So good.
But yeah, this is really, like I said, this is the tip of the spear for him, and that it's, like moving forward as a character in that, for all the reasons I said already, and that's how I will reiterate.
Yeah. No, it's a super wonderful moment. You guys hit it perfectly. I'm not even going to attempt to go off of what you said, but I love that this is the beginning of Rom's journey into just saying fuck you to the Ferengi. It's wonderful. Even though, as we know later on, he becomes fucking Nagus. So, he becomes
a very special kind of Nagus.
True.
And I want to say, Michael in the chat just said, don't forget how badly Rom is treated initially after joining engineering. It's actually painful to see. Yeah, they don't initially accept him because he's got, much like Nog, he has to fight the stereotype of what a Ferengi is expected to be.
Yeah.
Which is, they are the first. They are the ones breaking the mold. And obviously, their legacy and discovery, they gave us the USS Nog. That man made a name for himself.
Literally the Trailblazers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just, seeing that. And I love also in Lower Decks when we get that scene in the far-ish future, how the greatest man is O'Brien, and there are two Ferengis in the front row of that Starfleet school. You know, they are, all of the Ferengi in this whole show are just bursting the doors wide open, and the species is, you know, evolving, and we're seeing those first steps, which I think is the best part of all of these episodes.
What I like about this too is that even, you know, as much as we poo-poo on Picard a lot, by the time of Picard season 2, probably a lot because of what Rom and Nog did, the Ferengi have joined the Federation. You know, their flag is in Starfleet Academy. Like, whether, okay, so you could say whether that's a symbol of them having Ferengi students or whether they're in that Federation. I don't think they'd have a flag there if they weren't in the Federation. So I'm assuming that they are.
Yeah,
and it's a nice assumption.
Ferengi are just hitting speed run on, you know, becoming members of the Federation and living up to those ideals. Because, you know, some species, it takes a while. We've got 3 trailblazers. Hit that button. Let's go. Yep. And I think it just shows how miserable Ferengi are as a species, that they're gung-ho to try something new.
Right.
Because for every Quark, there's about 300 Roms who are, you know, the workers being stepped on by the boss.
Wait, I don't have to live on a planet where it rains 24/7? That's a thing? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Anything else on Bar Association? Good? We'll talk about our final episode of the evening. We just watched it on Discord. It was our final watch along. Iggy Pop. I love Iggy Pop. The magnificent Ferengi. Ishka has been kidnapped. Not just kidnapped by the Jem'Hadar. And Quark and Rom immediately like, well, we have to rescue her. How are we going to do this? We're just Ferengi. We need to build a Ferengi strike team. We're going to get slaughtered. It's the Jem'Hadar. But they come up with their strike team anyway. Thoughts on this idea of the Ferengi going up against the, you know, the basic, you know, the maybe more bigger killing machines than the Klingons in the Jem'Hadar. Jess.
The Ferengi really said, let's go play Let's Make a Deal.
Yeah.
With the Jem'Hadar. First of all, I think it shows how much, you know, they've been earning Captain Sisko's respect, that he even lets them take their captive as bargaining material. I think it also just shows how much of a key player Ishka has become in the past year of the timeline, that she's a prime target and the Dominion thinks they're going to get a lot out from having her. You know, she's essentially backdoor running the Ferengi Alliance, and that's not private knowledge anymore.
No, that's right. Yeah, she's romantically involved with the Nagus. Yep. Get those lobes.
The first time I watched Ferengi love songs, my parents were there, and it was the most awkward hour of my life.
Oh man. Okay, that gets one of these.
I want to know what the hell is going on.
You know, 2 old people schmoozing, doing soft core, ear touching, making moans, and your dad's sitting right there like, you like this show?
Listen, old Ferengi, you're my kink, Dad. Don't kink shame me, please.
I'm just glad it wasn't Prophet and Lace.
Oh yeah, no.
Never again.
Never.
Yes, back to Magnificent Ferengi. They have to assemble the strike team, and I love the strike team because they get some more unconventional Ferengi. We meet Lek the Eliminator, who's more interested in blood.
But he's also a horrible hitman.
Well, he's a Ferengi.
Yeah, which is the whole thing's ironic. Yeah.
And they convince Nog, who thinks he's too good for these Ferengi shenanigans, but they tell him he can be in charge of training. So he's like, this can go on my resume. Okay.
Yep. He's an ensign now. And he's like, oh, you're going to make me like the strategic commander? Yeah. Okay. All right. You get to call me sir. Yeah.
And I love how going down the line, they just offer less and less latinum to each person who joins.
Yep. Yeah, because it starts at 50 and I think it goes all the way down to 20 at one point.
And then finally, they've got the team together. They're ready to rock and roll. They don't have a ship. So who rolls up?
Brunt. FCA.
Brunt
Disgrace
FCA.
Disgrace no longer FCA Brunt. Yep.
Brunt formerly FCA.
Yep. It's such a ragtag, not Ocean's 11 crew, right? It's literally just a bunch of idiots, including Quark's cousin. Uh,
Oh yeah, Gayla, also
Gayla.
disgraced,
Yep.
broken out of prison.
Oh man. Oh,
But dang it, they're gonna go find Ishka and they're gonna have a weekend at Bernie's.
Hawk, what did you think about the fact that before they were, doing the, like, just put it, the let's make a deal, that this is going to be an actual strike and they're going to try and be commandos, and Nog is just losing his mind because they are so awful.
This episode is like comedic masterpiece, like Magnificent Ferengi, obviously based on Magnificent Seven, that was one of those classic westerns based on Seven Samurai, blah blah blah. With these guys, like obviously Nog is a good one to have on your team, and that Rom too, but then you have Gayla, the cousin that tried to kill Quark and that with that ship that he gave to him.
Oh, cousin Gayla.
You have a disgraced Ferengi FCA liquidator in that Brunt, and that who's just like trying to gain favor back with the Nagus, and that you have this creepy little guy and that who calls himself an assassin.
I love him so much.
Test his blade against the mightiest foe he can. And it's like he gets in because he wants to fight some Jemadar. How the whole thing falls to pieces in that because of the Ferengi and their weakness. The job was for 50 bars, and that he's like, you'll be getting 20.
Well,
we'll be splitting 20 bars.
Rom unfortunately opens his big mouth at the literal worst point.
The hostage they're negotiating to trade gets killed because of that.
Apparently, and Jess, you can maybe confirm this, Wallace Shawn wasn't available, so that's why they made Moogie the target in this one. But I think it actually makes her a more compelling story.
Yeah, that is correct. And I agree. I think it was, a happy little accident, because my favorite moment in this whole thing is when Nog goes up to Ishka and he's like, I got to test you to make sure you're not a changeling. She's like, okay. And he cuts her and she grabs the knife. He's like, I'll cut you.
Starts banging on his ears. Yeah, it's so good. I want to go back all the way to House of Quark because I feel like this episode is a bit of the culmination of that, right? Because no one believes that Quark can actually make a deal with why do I forget the Wayun's people, the Vorta. I almost forgot. And especially Iggy Pop. God, he was so good. Yeah. He was so good. But he does it. And listen, I think you do have to say, I just don't think that the Vorta gave a shit. Like at the end of the day, Ishka wasn't, I think, quite the target they wanted. So the prisoner exchange was what it was, and he just wanted to get back to his day. But he also could have just killed Quark and taken both. So the fact that Quark does get the deal done before it all goes to hell really goes back to, I think, what he does on Kronos in House of Quark. Just
Oh yeah, Quark absolutely is willing to do whatever it takes to make the deal, even if that involves, kind of a standoff. And I like that you brought that episode back because it shows that he's been, Quark's character journey is a little more subtle. It's not, I'm going to join Starfleet, I'm going to be an engineer, but it's, I'm going to stand up for myself outside of just Ferengi culture, because throughout the entire series we see Odo and everyone else doesn't really take Quark seriously outside of being a businessman. But as the Dominion War drags on, Quark shows that he can be a team player, he can contribute to this, and to be taken seriously. And I like how this episode really let him kind of lead this and actually get the objective.
Yeah, absolutely. Hawk?
This is kind of a long-standing trait of Quark's. We know about Ferengi cowardice and cravenness, and it's like it's all profit and nothing. But Quark has always been good when his back is pressed to the wall and finding a solution on that. And then many times in DS9 and that his, literally his life has been on the line, and he will find a way. He will find that solution if he gets to go negotiate his way out of it. He has to employ deception and that, but he is so smart. Odd, because we got so familiar with TNG Ferengi and how it's like, eventually they were outsmarted at all points and that. And it's like the same cannot be said about Quark and that. I don't think anybody really can get the best of him in that when it comes to one-on-one.
Except for Odo.
Except for Odo in that, but then that's Odo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's always been Quark's biggest strength in that. He is smart. He's usually the smartest one in the room he's in.
Yeah. I love this conversation that you're having in the chat right now, Jess, with Michael, who says, when Moogie's giving Iggy Vorta financial advice, it has much the same feeling as Loxana, which I say again is why I say we were robbed. There was never an Ishka Loxana episode because the two both were on Deep Space Nine. And Jess, you said that I think Ishka would enjoy going through Loxana's wardrobe, which absolutely
so many fancy glittery clothes. And all I'm gonna say is Zek's pretty old. Ishka might, be single again soon. Maybe hit up Betazoid, see what's going on.
Yep. Before we move on, I'm just gonna say one of my absolute favorite moments from this episode is at the end when I think we're just gonna call him this for the rest of the show. Iggy Vorta is waiting for the prisoner exchange, and Ishka's giving him moisturizing tips, and he's legitimately interested. You hear it in the tone the line's delivered, but then there's, I really want to hear more about this. But if your son doesn't come quickly, I am going to have to kill you. It is so deadpan and so amazing. Ah, man.
Best casting. And I don't know if they wrote this character specifically for Iggy or if it just kind of worked out that way. Yeah. But it really is so perfect. And you got to think, Vorta have probably never heard of lotion. Yeah. I don't think the founders have any of Eno in stock.
No. Just Ketracel White, which might have some moisturizing properties if not inhaled by Jem'Hadar. I don't know. I'm reaching.
He's exploring a new culture and he's fascinated.
Yeah. Anything else on our final episode here, the Magnificent Ferengi? Good.
We mentioned about the dead Vorta and that bang his head against the bulkhead. And that
the less said about that, the better. It's so silly. It works for the episode, but it's you got to suspend. You got to suspend your disbelief a little bit. Let's find as many stimulators as we could possibly find.
Let's light this man up.
Did somebody in the chat say it tonight, or it was like Weekend at Bernie's?
Yes. I said Jessko said that.
Oh yeah, so good. Oh man. Listen, we said at the top of the show that there were some amazing Ferengi episodes left off the list. There's only so many you could choose. Some of the ones we have on here we've talked about a little bit tonight, including Rules of Acquisition. I gotta tell you, Jess, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to talk about this one because I don't remember it too well. Why was Body Parts on your list?
So Body Parts is the episode where Quark is told by a Ferengi doctor that he's dying. So he auctions his body off preemptively so that he can live like a king for the last few days. And then when it comes out, he's not actually dying. He has to deal with the fact that Brunt now owns him.
Oh, that's right. It's been a long time since I've seen that episode.
My favorite part of the episode is the very last line. Quark rolls back in. He's like, "I'm not dying. I can sue for medical malpractice."
But you're not going to get any money from the Federation because it was Julian who diagnosed him, right?
No, he got diagnosed on Ferengi.
Never mind. It's been a very long time.
That's an interesting episode, actually, in that because it's the first time like his values are actually challenged in that he entered into a contractual deal with Brunt in that. And now for the first time, it's like he has to really consider breaking the deal because it means his life, but that is also one of those things that like his upset at Moogie earning profit and that breaking a contract in the Ferengi culture was disgusting to them.
Tara put it perfectly. He gets a reverse mortgage on his body.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. Another one on this list, which it's almost a shame that we didn't add it last minute. I know we talked about possibly doing it. We didn't end up, but Little Green Men. It is not only a classic Ferengi episode, it is probably one of DS9's best episodes. Shuttlecraft time travel accident. They're taking Nog back to Starfleet Academy, or so they think. They wind up back at it's Roswell. The Ferengi are Roswell, and there's hijinks with the universal translators. The Ferengi try and, basically, acquire wealth and I think sell technology to the humans. It is such a good episode, Jess.
Oh yeah, humans, baseball, and atom bombs,
and root beer. Yeah,
root beer.
Yeah,
this one. I mean, I love it. It's hysterical. The only reason it got cut from the list is I feel like it doesn't really progress the story too much, but it is hysterical. And it never fails to make me smile. Just them being the little Roswell aliens and trying to make a deal with these humans, not realizing we really don't have anything they want at this point.
Yeah. Hawk.
It's been a while since I watched it. I do remember it was great, especially that scene when, they didn't have the translator working in that at that point. So.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Quark is the mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that I almost said the wrong episode. Little Green Men, I think, has one of the best television reactions to people smoking ever. They are so revolted by the cigarettes that they're constantly, because in the 40s, everybody was smoking a pack a day, and they're just coughing and I think they're having an allergic reaction to it. It's so good. I love that episode. Ferengi love songs. I believe we did a Drunk Space Nine on this one as well. I think this one doesn't exactly move the Ferengi story along either, but a good one, Jess.
Oh yeah, Ishka's making moves. She is in more ways than one. She's establishing herself as the queen of Ferenginar, and I support that. And the episode is very awkward, but also very funny.
Yes, indeed. Hawk, anything on Ferengi love songs?
Completely agreed. Awkward, but very funny.
Yep. And then also considered to be one of the all-time great, it's an emotional episode, is Only a Paper Moon, and that is Nog's recovery from losing his leg in battle. And it's not so much a Ferengi story, but we, unfortunately, with the episodes we talked about tonight, we didn't get to talk a great deal about Nog, but he really shines in this episode, and his life living with Vic in the holodeck for a little bit. Jess, more on Only a Paper Moon.
Yeah, so as I was watching Deep Space Nine, I only recently watched it first through last episode all the way through in 2020. That's kind of how I stayed sane. And Nog's story, I had never really paid him any mind, but on that watch, he was my main character. His journey, it was so beautiful to watch and so beautifully acted by Aaron. And that episode it's the culmination of just the emotional arc, but also just, him as a character showing that you can be, you can join Starfleet, you can pursue your dreams, but sometimes it is going to get dark, but that doesn't mean you can't overcome it with time and healing. And it's just such a wonderful presentation of, what dark situations can cause. I know a lot of veterans really resonate with this episode. Yes. And it's just, I'm so glad that they treated Nog seriously enough and treated this topic seriously enough to give us this really beautiful episode.
Yeah. Hawk.
Brilliant episode. It's made all the more tragic in that because Aaron Eisenberg and that unfortunately passed away way too young in that. Yep. And this episode, thankfully, gives his character a time to shine, that moment to shine, and also tackles the issues of PTSD and wanting to retreat from everything and that, after an injury. It's amazing.
One of the things that makes this episode so damn good, and Jess, you hit it right on the head, veterans resonating with this episode, they didn't dance around the fact that no matter whether it's the 23rd century or not, and you can get a brand new leg that's made out of your DNA, and it's just like having the old one, you've still been an amputee. And you still have that ghost feeling, and all the technology in the world isn't going to make that go away. And you're going to have PTSD of being majorly wounded in battle. And it is just done so just absolutely just perfect. And for Vic too, who you come to just love on this show, to be the one that gets him back on his feet is just, it's wonderful. It's one of the best episodes of DS9 for sure. Yeah. Anything else? Did we miss anything in honorable mentions? Hawk.
There was one I wanted to mention was the episode Starship Down from season 4, episode 6. You know that one, right?
Is this the shuttle one where Odo and Quark, or no? That's a different
No,
episode.
this is one. It starts out with Quark had swindled someone from the Gamma Quadrant, and that was some phony tariffs and that. And the guy was basically retracting his business. They wind up on the I think it was on the Defiant with Worf, and that they're caught in a gas giant while a couple of Jemadar warships are trying to find them. Quark and this person that he ripped off are trapped in this room together with an unexploded Jemadar warhead sticking out of the wall. Quark not only manages to disarm a warhead and that, but also salvage this broken relationship with this and ends up, introducing the man to gambling.
I haven't seen that one in a while.
It's so good.
It's good.
Yeah.
And this one wasn't ever gonna make the list because the main plot is with Odo and Kira, but Heart of Stone, solely for that scene where Nog is he goes to Sisko and he's like, I want to join Starfleet. And Sisko's like, no, you don't. You're a Ferengi. Go home. Nog comes back. No, I want to join Starfleet. And just that scene in particular, just, it's the start. It's the culmination of, Jake teaching Nog how to read way back in the Nagus.
Yeah.
He wants to join Starfleet. He, in the siege of AR 558, Nog he loses his leg, but he saves a lot of people by hearing we're going to be ambushed.
Yeah.
And it just, his whole journey at Heart of Stone is the core of it. It is Nog saying, yes, I want to make the galaxy a better place and not just focus on myself. And
the fact that, even after Sisko turns him down a couple times, it's Sisko who ends up, putting in the recommendation, right? It's a big deal. That's a great moment. Yeah. Anything else? Good? Oh, so many good episodes. This was so much fun. I also want to say, as we're about to get into mailbag, thank you to everyone in the collective who left us the mailbag we're going to get into, because I think this is one of our biggest mailbags on the pod ever. Awesome. Just awesome. Let's get into it. It is the Subspace to Pole and mailbag.
Shipwide, Cadet Aurora.
Aye, sir.
And Jess, you're our guest again. Would you like to take the Subspace to Pole?
Absolutely. So we asked Trek Twitter what their favorite Ferengi Deep Space Nine moment is, and this is what they had to say. 10% said Wallace Shawn's introduction as Zek. 12% said Ishka's Moogie or Moogie's Lobes for Profit. I voted for that one.
Nice.
23% said Rom starting a union. And 55% said Nog joining Starfleet, which is the correct answer.
Yeah, it is. We were just talking about it. It is just so wonderful. Another great Nog episode, and I can't remember the name of it. But it's either season 6 or season 7 with the Rogue Academy kids on board one of the Defiant class ships.
That one hurts.
Good one.
That is such a great Nog episode. Oh man.
There's also a Treasury Faith in the Great River where he trades Sisko's desk for supplies.
Oh God, that's right. Wait, that's the Stem Bolts episode, right?
Yeah.
No, Stem Bolts was a different one.
I keep mixing them up.
Stem Bolts, him and Jake kind of form a consortium and sell land on on Bajor, which solves everyone's problems for those 12 rapages of Yamak sauce.
That's right.
But in Treachery Faith in the Great River, that O'Brien needs something for repairs, and Nog's like, I got you. The Great River will provide. And he trades a picture with the desk for something else, and eventually he gets O'Brien what he wants. But the whole time O'Brien's like, where's the desk? I need it back, Nog.
Yep. Oh, they just don't end the amount of amazing episodes on Deep Space Nine, Ferengi or not. Jess took the poll. Hawk, why don't you continue on mailbag with Cassie's, please?
Sure. Cassie wrote, there are so many good Ferengi moments in DS9, it's almost impossible to choose. But Dog's speech to Sisko about joining Starfleet is always going to be up there for me. In fact, his whole arc is a 10 out of 10.
100%. Yeah. I'll go ahead and take Chris's. The Ferengi are DS9. Absolutely true. Quark's growth is great, and as Cassie mentioned, the Nog arc is epic. Hell, the kid gets a ship named after him. I love the ROM moments though, and nothing really beats when he starts the knee yoon.
The Union.
Union.
The union.
Union.
The knee, I think he's making. I think in the chat last night he made fun of the way that he said union. So I think he's pulling my leg.
Union.
And no pun intended with legs there. Oh, maybe too soon. Learning how much agency he really has over himself when he quits the bar and orders a drink. It's comically great and it's so sweet. I can relate to him making this discovery. Wonderful. Love that. Can you take MCs, Jess?
Absolutely. MC wrote, while Nog's journey as a Starfleet cadet has been talked about in other mailbags, I really want to shout out when he does show off his Ferengi nature in both In the Cards and Treachery Faith in the Great River. While the Federation has its lofty ideals and the Ferengi need to acquire, it is treated mostly as a joke. These episodes show that the idea of supply and demand is alive and well in the 24th century, and Ferengi negotiations can be for the benefit of everyone. It is just when they're in the wrong hands that it goes awry.
It's really good. Can you take Haven's, Hawk?
Yes, Haven wrote, this probably comes as no surprise to anyone, but honestly, my favorite moment would be the entire episode, Rules of Acquisition. The whole Pell storyline is absolutely perfect. I believe during last night's watch along, it was said that some stories wouldn't be made in the current era. I strongly believe this one would be made again. That is, unless it was on a podcast I listened to afterwards, but I could easily see the story being made in the Kurtzman era, and we would see more of Pell.
I like it.
Yeah.
I would love to see more of Pell.
Can I interject a short?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Pell resonates with me because, she's a woman. She identifies as a woman. She knows she is a woman, but she doesn't want to be perceived how society has framed women, not as what they are, but, society's expectations. And that's always really resonated with me because I think that absolutely reflects, a society even now. I mean, we are as progressive we are. We'll say, if women should be this way, women should be that way. No, you should be a woman how you think a woman should be. And you should be able to be perceived as a woman and still be seen as smart, profitable, whatever it is you're great at. And I like how this episode in its own little way kind of shows that, yes, she is dressing as a man, but, she still is, she comes out. She's like, I am a woman, Zach, screw you.
Yep. I love that moment. It's just so damn good. Yeah. No, and I appreciate you sharing that, Jess. It's really great. And Haven, that mailbag was perfect. Yeah. Who read that one?
I did.
Okay, so me, Blue Cat Ship wrote, I'd love to know what Pell and Mugi Ishka have been up to since DS9. They opened the door, but it also shows there must have been a few sneaky pioneering Ferengi women who found ways around the rules and began making profits, owning, trading, building, selling. So it's been some 30 plus years since DS9 in our real world timeline, roughly a generation. So how much has Ferengi society changed and how much has it still not changed in 30 some years? And I wish we still had Nog, Aaron, to see how he was doing now. Absolutely. And like I said, I'm 99.9% sure that in the beginning of Picard season 2, as Jean-Luc is giving his commencement speech to the new Academy cadets, that the Ferengi flag is there, that they've joined the Federation. So it's a lot. That's a big change from Deep Space Nine. I mean, that's 20 something years. That's not a long time if you think about who they were still in Deep Space Nine and what it takes to join the Federation. By the end of Deep Space Nine, Bajor declines to join the Federation, and that's what Deep Space Nine is all about. So it's a major change for them. So back to you, Jessko. You take Producer John's, please.
Absolutely.
Producer John is from Open Pike, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
Nice.
Well, hello there. So producer John wrote, Quark going guns akimbo in Sacrifice of Angels and proving once again that he believes in his brother, the Federation, and stopping the Dominion are more important than his life or his profits. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Tara's, please, Hawk.
Tara wrote, I have a feeling my favorite moment may be in Magnificent Ferengis, but I don't remember details and will probably miss the watch along tonight. Generally, it's way too hard to choose. I do love when Quark lectures Jessko about how desperate the Ferengis' monetary system, how despite the Ferengis' monetary value system, they were never barbarically violent like humans. Good point. No concentration camps or interstellar wars, and never owned slaves, although Ferengi women might interpret their position differently. In the end, Quark tells Jessko that Ferengi are better than humans because Ferengi are nothing like us.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. Yummy on Pod writes, the whole squad remote controlling a dead Forta over to a bemused Iggy Pop is iconic and is a perfect encapsulation of what makes a good Ferengi episode, which is absurdity. Even though I hate this so much, I can't help but always think about it when it comes to the Ferengi, which is the time that Quark tried to kill Dax just for some profit. The writers learned over time that the greed needed to be portrayed as funny rather than weirdly cruel. Yeah. I don't remember him trying to kill Dax.
He tried to sell the symbiont.
Oh,
at one point.
Yep, that's the one. Jess, take us home, please, with Jen's.
Absolutely. Jen wrote, our favorite is a quote from Quark about how humans. So, quote begin. Let me tell you something about humans, nephew. They're a wonderful, friendly people, as long as their bellies are full and their holosuites are working. But take away their creature comforts, deprive them of food, sleep, sonic showers, put their lives in jeopardy over an extended period of time, and those same friendly, intelligent, wonderful people will become as nasty and violent as the most bloodthirsty Klingon. You don't believe me? Look at those faces. Look in their eyes. You know I'm right, don't you? Well, aren't you going to say anything? And then Nog responds with, I feel sorry for the Jem'Hadar. Damn straight.
Damn straight. Absolutely. So good. The conclusion of the Ferengi, both on TNG and DS9. Jess, literally could not have done this without you. You are the Ferengi expert. I have learned so much, not only from Chicago, but also coming up with these two pods with you. I feel like I know the Ferengi 1,000 times better than I did. This has been absolutely amazing. I want to thank you so much for doing this with us. Before we end, plug away. What do you have going on? Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So the easiest, most convenient place to find me is going to be Twitter. I am at Captain_Lizard, which is lizard with an O because lizard was taken. I share there some cosplay. I do a Ferengi cosplay. I'm working on a Jennifer the Andorian cosplay, so you can see some of that as well.
Can't wait to see that, by the way.
Yeah.
Some of my Star Trek writings. I have a novel about Pel's life after that episode that I think is pretty fun. So hit me up if you want to read that. That's really it. Not too much.
Awesome. Well, again, it has been an absolute pleasure. It has been profitable. It has been lobe-tastic. Thank you so much. That is going to do it for this one. For our patron collective, join us for our happy hour directly following this pod. Michael Kwan, this has been his job now. I like it. At the end of our pods, he asks, who's next, Julian? And I will say, who is next? Captain Jean-Luc Picard, as Vatic says in the trailer. Picard Week begins next Thursday. 3 great shows, capping off the night with us, a Strange New Pod. We will have our very own collective member, MC, joining us. We'll have Rihanna from the House of Duras, the Duras sisters, joining us for our wildly insane idea, and that is pitching a TNG Kelvinverse movie. I don't know why I decided to do this, but we're going to, and it's going to be really fun. I have the first act planned out, and then Hawk, I'm leaving it up to you guys. Okay. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. That is going to do it. Join us for our happy hour patrons directly following this one. For Jess, for Hawk, I am Julian. Live long and prosper. Get some profit. Get some latinum. Majram. Good night.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.